Yeah, g'day guys, welcome to Shenke Garage. So in this episode of the HX1 tonner build, we're going to relocate the battery, gusset the forelink, finish painting the chassis, and then final fitment. So yeah, we'll jump straight into the video and hope you enjoy. So in this episode, going to get stuck back into the chassis. So with the last video, I was a little bit unsure whether I should paint everything and then put everything back together again and then start the engine up afterwards. Or whether to start the engine up and then do all that after. And thanks for all the comments, and majority of the comments were suggesting that I should paint everything and then get everything all put back together. So that's what I'm going to do this episode. So with that, I do have a couple of jobs I still have to do before I pull everything apart. So one of the jobs is to relocate the battery into the back end. So I do have this battery tray that I have made up. So I got this thing made up probably 10, 12 years ago. It was pretty rusty, so I've just cleaned it up with a bit of rust blast. It's obviously going to get painted, but yeah, what I'm going to do is put it into this section here. Another job that I'm going to do is gusset the forelink cross member. So I was just thinking that there's probably going to be a lot of load on this cross member from the forelink. Obviously one link's going to push and one link is going to pull, so there's going to be a lot of twisting force on that. So I've decided that I'm going to, just to be safe, gusset this cross member. So I'll gusset here. And then also what I'm going to do is make a cross member and get rid of the old mounts for where the tray sits on. So I'm going to make up a cross member for that as well. So with this battery tray, I'm going to roughly mount it about here. The problem with that though is that this old mount where the tray sits on, that just bolts to there. But as you can see, once the battery's in there, it's going to hit onto this mount. So what I'm going to do is get rid of this old mount and make up a complete new one. With the battery tray, I'm going to bolt this in. I just think it'd be better bolting it than welding it in. That way, if I ever do need to remove it, I can just unbolt it and get rid of it. And with the cross member, I've just made up this bracket. So I've just cut a bit of 50 by 75 mil rectangle hollow section. I've just cut that in half and then used that as a mount. So I'll do the same for the other side. I've just picked up the old bolt holes where the old mount was, and then what I'll do is weld a cross member along there to the other side to this section here, and then that way that's going to clear the battery. It's going to look better, and also if I ever need to replace the battery, you can just unbolt this cross member and then pull the battery out. Okay, so to strengthen up this cross member, I just cut out these gussets out of 40 by 40 square section. So I just used a cold cut saw, just got the angles and then cut that down with the saw. So that'll just sit in there like so. So I'll tack that in for now, and then once I do remove everything, I can weld that in properly. So I think that's going to strengthen this up quite a bit. Okay, so it's a new day, nice and wet Sunday here in Brisbane. So it's a good day to be working in the shed. Gonna need a coffee straight up, but what better way to drink it than out of this new Shenke Garage coffee mug. So new merch store coming soon, so keep an eye out on that. I'm waiting for a few more samples to come, just some t-shirts, and I'll check out the quality before I post it up live. So yeah, watch out for the merch store. So we'll drink this and get cracking into it. Okay, so we've got the battery in there now, that's bolted in, fits up nice. Got the gussets here tacked in on both sides, and then also got these brackets for the tray. So I've done them on both sides, and now I can make this cross member. So I've just cut this length of 40 by 40 up. So that is just going to sit over like so onto them brackets. I'm gonna have to notch this out so it sits a little bit lower and sits in these brackets. So yeah, I'll do that and then can tack them in. So I think that's gonna turn out pretty nicely. I reckon might even be able to take that battery out without removing that cross member. So that'll be a good thing. So that's tacked on there for the time being. So you can just see I've just notched out this section here about 10 mil. So that is the same height as the old mount. So I'll also probably fill in this section here when the time comes. I'll fill that in just to make it a bit nicer and stronger, and then I might make a 45 or something just to weld in there to give a bit more strength. But for the time being, I'm just gonna leave that as it is, just tacked in for now. I can always paint this, remove this and paint this later, because yeah, I'm not sure exactly what I'm gonna do for the tilt tray for the time being and how I'm gonna latch it. So I may end up drilling a hole or making some sort of a latching system on this bar. So yeah, I'll just leave it tacked for now. Won't bother painting this as well because it can be removed and painted later on anyway once everything is all sort of finalized. So that is everything all in place. So I've got brackets made up for the brake lines. I've got holes drilled in the chassis with nut certs for clamping all the fuel and brake lines. So I think that's everything that I can think of for the arse end. Just got one job to do, is make up a mount for this clamp for the fuel filter. So that's just from Speedflow, so I'll mount that in there. So once that's done, then pretty much undo all my work and strip it all the way back to the bare chassis again. Can finish off welding them gussets in, and then can paint the arse end. Still absolutely pissing here today in Brizzy, so hopefully you can hear me, but I've just stripped everything back here, so she's all back to bare bones again. This diff's ready to pull out. I'll probably have to jack up the arse end a bit and then put it on the dollies and then pull it out. But yeah, she's ready to paint, so I'll have to treat it with the KBS rust blast in some of the areas, sand a few bits back, and I think what I'm going to do is brush on with the KBS. It leaves a pretty good finish when you brush it on. I really cannot be bothered respraying a whole lot with a spray gun again, so I think I'll just brush it on and I reckon that should be fine. Okay, so I've just removed this diff and stripped it back. I've gone over it with some 180 grit sandpaper. Also with the chassis, I've just welded all the gussets up properly. There's a few little brackets I had to add a bit more weld. And I've just grinded all the welds back nice and smooth and gone over the bars with some 180 grit also. So I'm at the point now of cleaning everything up with the Aqua Clean from KBS. So I'll do that, and then I'll attack it with the rust blast, and then she will be ready to paint. Okay, so that's the diff all painted up. So I just used a DeVilbiss GPI spray gun with a 1.8mm tip. So that tip works pretty good for the KBS. So yeah, that turned out pretty well. In here, I've just got the battery box and the 4 links all sprayed up as well. So yeah, they turned out pretty good. And then back onto the chassis. So that's all brushed on, and it come out really well actually. For a brush on, yeah, the finish, you know, it self levels, and it actually turns out pretty good. So I've sort of tried to blend it in a few areas with the old paint, so it's not, you can still sort of see it, but it's, yeah, not obvious. So yeah, pretty happy with how that's turned out. So that's one coat. I'm going to give it 2 coats, so I'll let it all dry. Okay, so I've just let all this dry overnight, so she's all ready for the final fit up. So before I fit everything back up, I'm just going to coat the inside of the chassis just with this cavity wax. So I just got this off eBay. I couldn't find the KBS one. I know that they make a cavity wax, but I couldn't find their product in Australia anywhere. So yeah, I just got this one off eBay, so I'll give this a go. I just got the 3 tins because I'm probably going to use it on the cabin as well, inside like the sill panels and... Okay, so that is everything all back together. So I just thought I would smash it out, chuck on the music and get it all done. I didn't think there was any point in filming it just because it's all in the previous episodes anyway. So I'll talk you through a couple of things that I've done. So just with the exhaust, so I just used some ultra copper to seal up the headers onto the heads. I've used a gasket in between here, just with some ultra copper as well. So all that exhaust system is all sealed up and everything's all tight there. With the 4 link, that's all adjusted up. I ended up dropping the coilovers down 1 notch, so about 1 inch. So yeah, once I drop it down, I'll see what it looks like. And I do have that adjustability there to drop it down or up or whatever. So yeah, so with the battery, I ended up welding a couple little tabs on the side there. So I'll drill a hole, use a bit of all thread to clamp this battery down. So yeah, with the fuel system, that's all ran nicely. Everything's all clamped. You got the bracket holding this filter in, so that turned out nice. Just with all the fuel system, tighten everything up. I ended up getting some of these anodized spanners, so -6, -8, and then adjustables. So I was able to tighten up the whole system with them 3. So highly recommend getting yourself some of these. It's just a hell of a lot easier and don't damage the fittings. So with the brake line, so that all runs up the side, and I just used some of these clamps just here and nut-serted into this cross member. So they go up all the side of the chassis. So with the fuel system, I ended up using some of these notch head clamps here. So the tube just snaps into this clamp. So just use the nut-certs into the chassis again, and then just screw them in, and then the tube just snaps in. So that holds it in nicely. So yeah, moving down. So I just use some more of these separators with the fuel pipe as well. And then down this end, so I ended up cutting these tubes back, and I thought I would go over the headers with the flexi line. I just think it's a hell of a lot neater going over than under. There should be enough room once I do put the cab on. So once I get the cab put back on, I'll run these lines properly and clamp everything up. I'll probably get some of that thermal cloth stuff. I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, the one that wraps around the headers, just to protect these hoses and stop any heat, heating up the fuel. Okay, so that's pretty much all the chassis all done now. So everything is all together. So I think the next job now is to start this thing up. So it's been a long time coming. I'm pretty excited to get this thing started. It's been about 10 to 12 years since I heard this engine when I put it on the engine dyno, so it's not been started since then. So yeah, watch out for the next video. Should be a bit of a milestone. Pretty excited to get this thing started. So if you enjoyed that video, hit that like and subscribe button below. Also hit the bell notification to give you alerts on when a new video is coming out. I'll also leave a card up in this corner here for the HX1 tonner build. So if you are new to the channel, it's the very first episode of the build all the way to the latest. So have a binge on that. So yeah, we'll see you on the next episode. I think it's going to be a super exciting episode. See you next time on Shenke Garage. Cheers.